Former Trump White House Communications Director Anthony Scaramucci visited Philadelphia today.
He took part in a conversation about contemporary political and economic issues. He also sat down for an interview with Eyewitness News reporter David Spunt. So, David, what did he have to say?
Oh, Yuki, as you can imagine, he had a lot to say. Anthony Scaramucci was the White House Communications Director for just 11 days. But today he told me he's still proud of his unusually short tenure. He's still close with President Trump, and today he was in Philadelphia to dish about several serious subjects while having a little fun.
Everything about me I own.
He's proud to embrace his nickname, the Mooch. Anthony Scaramucci doesn't hold back when he talks.
See, these are women's sunglasses, right? See that? Women's sunglasses, okay?
You're comfortable with it?
Totally. Who cares?
All kidding aside, we discussed several serious topics when we sat down with him after his speech to the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. Over the summer, Scaramucci had access to the most powerful man in the world whenever he wanted. Times have changed.
Absolutely miss it. Would love to be there. Would love to try to support the president.
Today, President Trump is continuing his tour of Asia, so far with visits to Japan, South Korea, and China. Scaramucci says he believes the president should be tough on North Korea's Kim Jong-un. He also defended the president's decision not to answer questions at a news conference after the Chinese government requested no questions.
He's in an away field situation. He should abide by some of the levels of those ground rules. I think there's ample time to question him when he's home or back on Air Force One.
When asked about Russia and the president's expected meeting with Vladimir Putin, Scaramucci again didn't hold back.
There's one nation in the world that can take out the United States in 35 minutes. You know what that nation is?
Russia.
Correct. So you think that the American leadership, political leadership, shouldn't be meeting with the Russian leadership?
Anthony Scaramucci denies any collusion between the Russians and the White House. He admits there may be some concerning meetings that took place, but he says his former boss and friend, President Trump, did nothing wrong. David Spunt, CBS 3 Eyewitness News.
It's very interesting, David. Great. Thanks so much.
Still to come.